Okay, the masked professor is on the air. Ooh, ooh, ooh. All right.
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID followed by pound. Enter your participant ID followed by pound. You are in the meeting now. You are the first participant. Please stand by.
Hooray for first participation. Okay, so today's journey will be through chapter 13. I've advised and extended the presentation a bit, which I'm sure y'all will enjoy a more long and drawn out explanation. Before I get too far in, let me remind you that next week we will be finishing up the book, and then the week after that you will be presenting your projects. So if you're going to do that through Zoom, I suggest you practice and prepare that. And if you're going to be doing it here in person, of course that simplifies things, and we will be preparing the presentation area here. Okay. All right, so chapter 13 is progress and performance measurement and evaluation. Of course, here we have our famous diagram of where we are in the book, All right, so our learning objectives. Identify the 4 steps for controlling a project. Utilize a tracking Gantt chart to not monitor time performance. Understand and appreciate the significance of earned value. So you have to not only understand it, you have to appreciate it. Calculate and interpret the cost and schedule variance. This is actually 5. Calculate and interpret performance and percent indexes. Forecast the final project cost, that's number 6. And number 7, identify and manage scope creep. So as our part of our chapter outline, the first part is structure of a project monitoring information system. 13.2 is the project control process. 13.3, the monitoring the time performance. 13.4, development of earned value, the cost and schedule system. 13.5, developing a status report. A hypothetical example. Oh, that was well done, wasn't it? 13.6, indexes to monitor progress. 13.7, forecasting the final project cost. And 13.8, other control issues. All right, so when we're talking about our project monitoring system, we have to determine what data will we collect, how, when, and who will collect the data, how to analyze that data, and how will we report our current progress to the management. All right, so our information system structure, what data are collected? Well, first of all, the current status of the project. We usually frame that in terms of the schedule and the cost. We report on the remaining cost to complete the project, the date that project will be complete, the potential problems to be addressed now, and as I've tried to emphasize many times, we always report any problems we're having and how are we going to handle them. Our cost and schedule overruns and the reasons for them, and again, how are we going to get back on track. And our forecast of overruns at the time of project completion. If there's just no way because of scope creep, because of problems that we are going to be able to get on track, we want to forecast how much we're going to be off track. So our information system structure, we're going to have to collect that data, but we're also going to have to analyze our data. So who is collecting our project data? very often it will be you as the project manager who is collating all the data from the different project teams. How will it be collected? Are the teams self-reporting? Have we got some kind of metrics that we're able to gather that information? When will the data be collected? Do we collect it on a daily basis, a weekly basis, a monthly basis? And who will compile and analyze that data? On a large project, you may have a small management team that is working with you, which would include someone who analyzes the data. However, you need to understand as the project manager how this is done. All right, so when we are talking about our project monitoring information system, we have to think about the reports and the reporting. Who is going to receive the reports? Is it just the customer? Is it the customer and our sponsor? Do we report to the top management? How many people will be receiving the reports? How will the reports be transmitted? Are we just sending them by email? Do we have to print out reports that then are delivered to these individuals or groups? And when are we going to distribute them? Very often we'll have a weekly report which is very much a summary of what is going on with the project, and then a monthly report which is much more in-depth and detailed. All right, so what are we going to put in our progress report? Well, one thing is the progress since the last report. That's going to be something that everybody is going to want to see. The current status of our project. What is the schedule looking like? Are we ahead? Are we behind? What is the cost? Again, ahead, behind, and our scope. Particularly if we've had recent changes in the scope, we want to be sure we're reporting on that. And then we want to be able to say, these are the cumulative trends. Right now we are behind schedule, but we are catching up and expect to be caught up by the time of the next report. Our budget, we are ahead on our budget, and our trend is that we expect to have a surplus. Or we're behind on our budget, and we expect to finish slightly in the red for this project. All right, we want to always be sure we're reporting any problems or issues since the time of the last report. So we want to know what are the actions and the resolution of any earlier problems. Well, we had this problem, as you know, but we've been able to resolve it by the methods we laid out in our last report. Any new variants or problems must be identified, right? And at the very least, we say, we see this problem as happening, and we are working on a solution so that it does not interrupt our schedule and our cost. So we want to always report on what is the corrective action that we see. We have been working on this problem and we are expecting to be caught up and have fixed it by the next reporting period. This new problem has been identified. We have a plan of action we are putting into place. Mysterious noises off stage. All right, so then let's think about our project control process. Control we define as the process of comparing actual performance against plan to identify deviations, evaluate courses of action, and take appropriate corrective action. So, our project control steps, first of all, is setting a baseline plan. So that this is, of course, something we started way back in the day when we started creating our work breakdown structure, our schedule, and our network node analysis. We have been consistently measuring our progress and our performance against that baseline plan, comparing our plan against what is actually happening, and then taking action if that is not going in the right direction. All right, so when we think about monitoring our time and schedule performance, one method we use is the tracking Gantt chart. Another method can be a control chart and a schedule of milestones, right? Ideally, we have all three of these going. If nothing else, they make great graphics in the project reports. All right, so we have our baseline and tracking Gantt charts. Here we see our baseline Gantt chart, right? We have A, which, part A, which runs, or activity A, running for 2 time periods. Then once that is done, it drops down to B and C. B is running for 3 time periods, while C is running for 4 time periods. B drops down to D, which runs for 3 time periods. C, as you can see, has has 1 period's worth of slack, and when it is done, it triggers part activity E, which also has 1 period of slack in case we need it. And all of this adds into F, which takes 4 time periods to complete. Now, will we actually need all of these times? Well, the bottom chart shows the baseline versus the actual, where A and B both take the scheduled amounts of time, but C actually finishes a time period early and thus feeds into E, ready to go. But we're forecasting that D is going to take an extra time period. So overall, we're expecting our project to last an extra time period than we originally forecast. Here we see a schedule control chart. 0 would mean we are on time, whereas being above means that we're ahead of schedule, and being below means we're behind schedule. Right, so we can see we were behind schedule at first, but now we've caught up and we're getting ahead of schedule. Okay, well, you remember we were talking about using an earned value system way back in the day. We need to be able to develop that earned value system in conjunction with our schedule. So our time phase baseline plan corrects the failure of most monitoring systems to connect a project's actual performance to its schedule and forecast budget. As I've said before, the projects that I've worked on haven't done that. Most of the projects were so simple that we didn't need to, and the multi-million-dollar contracts I've managed, we were so far ahead of schedule that it never occurred to us that we would need to create this kind of thing. All right, so these are systems that measure only cost variances. They do not identify the resource and project cost problems associated with falling behind or progressing ahead of schedule. All right, so an earned value cost and schedule system is an integrated project management system based on the earned value concept that uses a time-phased budget baseline to compare the actual and planned schedule and costs. Well, you remember we've talked about earned value before, and we have done time-phased, time-phased budgets to see how that would work. As a reminder, here are terms that we use within this system. EV is earned value for a task. It's simply the percent complete times the original budget. So the earned value is the percent of the original budget that has been earned by actual work completed. Or BCWP, the budgeted cost of the work performed. Okay. PV is the planned time-phased baseline value of the work that is scheduled. An approved cost estimate of the resources scheduled in a time-phased cumulative budget baseline is the BCWS, or budgeted cost of the work scheduled. AC is the actual cost of the work completed, the sum of the costs incurred in accomplishing work, or ACWP, actual cost of the work performed. And the cost variance is the difference between the earned value and the actual cost for the work completed to date, where our cost variance equals our earned value minus our actual cost. Our schedule variance is the difference between the earned value and the baseline line to date, where the schedule variance equals the earned value minus the present value. The BAC is the budgeted cost at completion. Total budgeted cost of the baseline or project cost accounts. The EAC is the estimated cost at completion. The ETC is the estimated cost to complete the remaining work. And the VAC is the cost variance at completion. VAC indicates expected actual over or underrun cost at completion. All right, so when we're developing our integrated cost schedule system, first we have to define the work using our work breakdown structure. So that means that we have to know our scope, our work packages, our deliverables, our organization units, our resources, and our budgets, right? So all of these things have to be in place to be able to develop that integrated cost schedule system. Our second piece of work that we have to do is we have to develop the work and resource schedules. So schedule the resources to the activities and then figure out our time phase work packages in a network. And you thought I was just telling you all that to get you to look at something that you would never use again. Ha ha! 3, develop a time phase budget using work packages included in an activity. Accumulate the budgets for our present value. 4, at the work package level, collect the actual cost for the work performed, the AC, multiply the percent complete times the original budget, or earned value. Then we're going to compute the schedule variance, which is the earned value minus the present value, and the cost variance, the earned value minus the actual cost. All right, so here we're seeing something similar to what we've done before, where we look at our scope, deliverables, and our work breakdown structure versus our organization and organization breakdown structure. When we have those, we're going to plan and schedule our baseline. So, our control is that we're going to do our time, our cost, and our specifications by the deliverables and the organization. All right, so the rules for placing costs in baselines. Costs are going to be placed exactly as they are expected to be earned in order to track them to their point of origin. We use the percent complete rule where costs are periodically assigned to a baseline as the units of work are completed. And that is, of course, over the duration of the work package. Somebody stole my trash can, so bloody hell. All right, so the purposes of our baseline, well, that gives us a point to measure our performance. A planned cost and our expected schedule against which the actual cost and schedule are measured. So it gives us a basis for cash flows and awarding progress payments. It's a summation of our time phase budgets, our cost accounts as summed work packages along our project timeline. So, what costs are included in our baselines? And you see I went a little bit too far in enlarging. So our project direct overhead costs, things like labor, equipment, materials. Okay, so our methods of analyzing the variance, we're going to compare our earned value with our expected schedule value and the actual costs. So when we assess the status of our project, we look at three data elements. The planned cost of the work scheduled, our PV, our budgeted cost of the work completed, our earned value, and our actual cost of the work completed, our AC. Then we're going to calculate the schedule and cost variances. So if we have a positive variance, that is a desirable condition. But a negative variance suggests that we may have problems or we may have changes that have taken place. All right, so when we're measuring our variance and analyzing that, we look at cost variance, our CV, and that's going to indicate, did we do more than we expected by this point, or have we done less than we expected to do by this point? Schedule variance means that we have an assessment and we're putting it in dollar terms of the progress of all of the work packages in the project that have been scheduled so far. Here we're seeing a cost schedule graph. So we see our dashed line here is our planned value baseline. Our solid line is our actual cost. And our dotted line is our earned value. All right, so the difference between our actual cost and our earned value is our cost variance. And right now, we are not looking good in this regard. Our difference between our planned value and our earned value is our schedule variance. All right, so here we see 4 different views of how those 3 elements can interact. In our upper left-hand corner, I should have checked before to make sure the lines are coming out on the projector. We see a situation where our schedule variance is negative and our cost variance is negative. In the upper right-hand corner, we see a graph where we have a positive schedule variance, but we still have a negative cost variance. In our lower left-hand corner, we see a graph where we have both the schedule variance as positive and the cost variance is positive. And finally, in our lower right-hand corner, we have a graph where we see that our schedule variance is negative and our cost variance is positive. So, there you go. Bob's your uncle.
Clear as mud.
All right, so when we're going to develop a status report, we're going to take a hypothetical example. First of all, we have some assumptions. We assume that each cost account has only one work package and that each cost account is represented as an activity on the network. Our project network early start times will serve as the basis for assigning the baseline values. And from the moment work on an activity begins, some actual costs will be incurred each period until the activity is completed. So there you go. All right, so here we have our work breakdown structure with our cost accounts. Okay, so we can see that this is a fairly simple example where we're doing a digital camera prototype. It's a design build project budgeted at $320,000. Each of those, each of our work packages has a certain budget that has been assigned to it. Our organization breakdown structure also has 5 different organizational units, and they each have a certain amount of money that is assigned to them. All right, so our first breakdown package is the design and specifications, and $20,000 is allocated to that. Then the shell and power for the camera has been budgeted at $15,000. The memory, software, storage aspect has been budgeted at $100,000. The Zoom system has been budgeted at $35,000. And then assembly has been budgeted at $120,000, and testing has been budgeted at $30,000. All right, so here we have the Gantt chart for this particular project. And you can see it's broken down into the 6 activities. In activity B, shell and power, we have 2 slack time units, and the Zoom system, we have 1 slack time unit in case of problems. All right, so we see here a table that represents our schedule, and then when the different parts of the budget are going to be spent against the timeline. So that gives us our total planned value by period and our cumulative planned value by period. Of course, we want to look at the cost variance and the schedule variance. So our status report at the ending of period 1, our earned value is 10, our actual cost is 10, our planned value was 10, so there's no cost variance and no schedule variance. The status report at the ending of period 2, our activity A is finished, our earned value is 20, our actual cost though is 30, and our planned value was 20, so our cost variance is at a -10. And of course, we remember going into negative numbers is what we consider to be double plus ungood. So our status report ending in period 3, we have task A as already finished, so we've earned that value. Task B is 33% finished, C is 20% finished, and D is 60% finished. So therefore, we have a cumulative total for earned value of $66,000, an actual cost of $90,000, a planned value of $60,000, which means our cost variance at this point is negative 24,000. Our cost variance, excuse me, and our schedule variance is +6. So good for schedule, bad for cost. All right. So then our status report ending in period 4, our cumulative total for earned value is $113,000. Our actual cost is $150,000. Our planned value is $110,000. So our cost variance is negative 37. Our schedule variance is +3. All right, and that takes us into the end of period 5, when earned value is $123,000. Actual cost is $200,000. Man, we're getting way out of whack there. Our planned value is $150,000, so both our cost variance and our schedule variance are negative, and of course that's bad.
What does that indicate?
What does it amputate?
What does that indicate, like the cost variance?
Well, the cost variance indicates that we're spending more money than we should be, according to the schedule that we've laid out.
And then this, what about when the schedule variance is negative?
The schedule variance tells us whether we are ahead or behind on the scheduled spending that we were gonna do.
Okay.
All right, so end of period 6, earned value is $150,000. Actual cost is $220,000. Our planned value is $170,000. So we have improved a little on our cost variance, but lost ground on our schedule variance. At the end of period 7, our cumulative is the earned value is $160,000. The actual cost is $230,000. Planned value is $200,000. So our cost variance is still at a negative $70,000, and our schedule variance has gotten even worse and gone to a negative $40,000. All right, so we assume that brings us up to date to the end of period 7. So we're looking at this and we say, all right, here is our earned value, here's our actual cost, and here's our planned value. So the difference between our planned value and our earned value, our actual cost and our earned value is the cost variance of negative $70,000. The difference between our earned value and our planned value is our schedule variance of negative $40,000. All right, so here we're seeing what is our what our Gantt chart looks like as we are progressing. So again, we are assuming that today we are at the end of period 7. Today. So we got the design specs done, we got the shell and power done. although we seem to have gone over our scheduled time on that. We're still working on our memory and software aspect, and assuming we wrap that up in one more time period. Our Zoom system, we also went over the time period expected. So, we have gone past our expected times to complete these tasks. Because our assembly was supposed to start at the end of period 6, and now it's not going to be able to start till the end of period 8. Oh, damn it, go back. Yes, ma'am.
No, nothing. I'm just scratching my head, trying to make all this make sense.
Okay. All I can do not to say, if you've been here at the beginning,
I know.
all right, so this returns us to the diagram that we saw before about our spending, but with the schedule variance and cost variance having been put in. All right, so of course we use indexes to monitor progress. There is no way in the business world of today that we're going to go without some kind of mathematical terms that we can measure ourselves against. So first is our cost performance index. That is going to be equal to our earned value divided by our actual cost. All right, so we're measuring the cost efficiency of the work that we have done up till now. We have our scheduling performance index, which is the earned value divided by the planned value. And that measures our scheduling efficiency. We can also use our percent complete indexes. That will, that indicates how much of the work that we have done is represented in the budgeted actual cost to complete against the actual cost up till now. So we also have the percent complete index budgeted costs, or PCIB, which is the earned value divided by the budgeted actual cost to complete. We also can use percent complete indexes where we have the percent complete index of actual costs, or the PCIC, which is the actual cost divided by the EAC, which is earned value to complete, I want to say. I've already forgotten, as you can see. And the Management Reserve Index, or MRI, is the cost variance divided by the management reserve. Management reserve, of course, being how much money do we have for emergencies or contingencies that hasn't been used. Apparently, this is popular in the construction industry. And so I say, good on the construction industry. All right, so how do we interpret these indexes? My guess is poorly. No, I mean, if our index is greater than 1, we're going to say we're under cost and ahead of schedule. Under cost if we're looking at CPI, and ahead of schedule if we're looking at the SPI. If it's equal to 1, then if our CPI is equal to 1, it's on schedule, on cost. If our SPI is equal to 1, it's on schedule. And if our CPI is less than 1, it's over cost. If our SPI is under 1, we're behind schedule. Okay? I can't imagine, although I could be wrong, that a project would require us to use all of these different indexes
Oh, gosh.
and but maybe if we have a lot of accountants hanging around, that's exactly the way we would go. All right, so for our same camera project, they're showing us what the schedule performance index, the cost performance index, and the PCIB, which is
Plan costs.
oh yes, plan cost, interbank.
Interbank.
I don't know.
Index, plan cost index, baseline.
Good enough for me. Shows us how they're performing, right? So all of those are under 1 in the case of our camera project, which we're saying that means we're behind schedule, we're behind on cost, and in general, they're thinking, there's talk about standing the project manager up against a wall and shooting them. All right, well, maybe it won't be that drastic, but. All right, so we can use different earned value rules. If we have a short duration activity, or it's a small cost activity, we use the 0 or 100% rule. So when a work package is completed, it is 100% value earned, but otherwise it's 0% value earned. Or we can use the 50-50 rule, where we say, when you start that one work package, you immediately earn 50% of the earned value, and when you finish it, you get the other 50%. I better talk slower. My presentation is going to run out. Other earned value rules, we can use monitoring gates with earned value, so that we say at these certain points, you have earned X percentage of this work package's earned value. Now, of course, this is a very subjective way of looking at it, because we have already set up these gates, but we don't know for sure that they are 15, 20, 25, 50%. All right, so we can revise our estimates of the future project cost. So there's the idea of the revised estimated cost at completion, or EAC sub RE. So we call in our experts, and they look at the original baseline durations, and they look at the new information that we have and say, well, you know what, these estimates weren't very good. We now estimate that it's going to cost this. We can always have the forecast cost of completion, where we're using the actual costs that we've incurred so far and an efficiency index, so that we project the final costs where the original budget is unreliable for whatever reason. Right? The CEO just said, oh, we're going to do this project and you can have $100,000 to do it. You know, and this turns out to have been wildly optimistic. All right, so how we calculate the EAC sub RE and the EAC sub F. So we our revised estimated cost at completion is going to be equal to the actual cost plus our revised estimated cost to complete the remaining work. Okay, so that somewhat makes sense. To calculate our estimated total cost at completion forecast, we're going to say this is our estimated cost to complete the remaining work plus the actual cost. Right? We're calculating that estimated cost to complete the remaining work by taking the amount of work remaining and dividing it by our cumulative cost index to date. To break that down further, that's our total budget baseline at completion minus the earned value, and that's divided by the earned value divided by the actual cost. We have two complete performance index. So we measure the amount of value for each remaining dollar in the budget that it has to earn to stay within the budget. So if we get a ratio less than 1.00, that means that we can complete the project and we won't use up all the budget. We swear we won't. Scout's honor. So the to complete performance index is going to be equal to the budgeted amount to complete minus the earned value divided by the quantity, the budgeted amount to complete minus the actual cost. All right, so here we have a monthly status report. As you can see, this is not that complicated. We have the planned value, the earned value, the actual cost, the schedule variance, the cost variance, and the budgeted amount to complete. And then we have these various cost performance indexes and calculations. This is we have the project description, the status summary, the explanations, talking about what are the different situations going on, changes since the last report, our total cost of approved design changes, projected cost at completion, and they're explaining that the projected cost at completion is $56,000 over, so it's got a CPI of 0.95. And I think at some point they go curses foiled again. Okay, and our risk, they say nothing, no risks have changed. Here is a really complicated one where they're talking about decommissioning a nuclear plant. And I'm not even going to attempt to read through this, right? But this just goes to show if we have a very large and complicated project, we're very likely to be in a situation where all of these things have to be calculated and reported on. All right, so what are some issues in maintaining control of our projects? Well, one thing is the technical performance measurement, right? The financial performance measurement, we've kind of gone through in a very elaborate way with the earned value, the CPI, the SPI, etc. But the technical performance may be a bit harder to measure. When they're talking about the digital camera project, there was an example earlier. How do we say how successful you are on the memory software portion of the project? Do you just say, well, we're getting close, boss? Is there some kind of measurement we can make? Yeah, we're We believe we are 80% of the way there. So technical performance for a project like that may be very difficult. There's scope creep, right? So we're doing the digital camera project, and they say, oh, by the way, can the camera take a picture of an egg and sex it? You are familiar with the idea of sexing an egg, right? You have to sex eggs.
What's that?
We want to eat the boy eggs and let the girl eggs grow up to be chickens to lay more eggs.
Oh. Oh, okay. So we eat the boy eggs. So the girl eggs can make more chickens from more eggs.
Have we had any baseline changes? Right? Part of the project runs into trouble. So they're saying, look, we're gonna need an additional 2 time periods to complete this. Well, of course, that's gonna throw off the whole schedule, unless they have 2 time periods of slack that they can fill up. And our data acquisition costs and problems. We might have, it might actually be very easy to get the data, but it also might be very difficult because we have to do extra research, or we run into a problem, what we thought was going to be easy to do turns out to be hard, etc. So, pardon me. So when we have scope changes, we've been going along our original baseline here. We have, today, we're given a scope change. Right? We either have to do more than had already been promised, or they say, you know what, we're gonna ditch this part of the project, so your scope has come down. If the scope has gone up, we have a new baseline that we're gonna have to calculate all of that. This dashed line is the old original. But if it decreases, then we're gonna have a baseline down here. All right, so this is the communication plan for a project for a conference center, right? So then they're looking at what is the information we have milestone reports, time and cost reports, risk reports, issues reports, team meeting times, outsourcing performance, change requests, and gate decisions. All right, so each of those has to be decided, when are those going to take place? What mode do we send the report? Who's responsible to send the report? And who's going to get the report? And here are our key terms. Okay, so what questions do you have at this point? What questions do you have at any point?
So, we went over chapter 12 and 13 this week, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Next week, we will go over essentially the rest of the book. And the week after will be project report presentations.
so we'll go into chapter 14 and we're gonna stop there, or 14 and 15?
Remind me what 14 and 15 are.
14 is project closure,
Okay, we're gonna do that.
and 15 is international projects.
We'll probably do that one. We will skip 16, most likely, which is Agile Project Management.
Yeah,
You already had figured on that? You know my reputation for not being very agile.
yeah. And then oh, I have a question. When did you post the homework? Was it yesterday? Or was it today?
I want to say I posted it today. But remember, homework is always due a week later than it is posted.
Yeah, so if you posted it today, then it's due until next Thursday. Okay. I have another question.
Ask as many as you would like.
Am I the only one in this class left?
Well, you're certainly the only one that shows up semi-consistently.
Yeah. Okay.
So, all right, so let's leave the meeting. And I would like to ask you a question,
Okay.
which is, I can't help but notice that you haven't been on time to class for a while. Is there something going on I should know about? Are you having to fight off alien chickens on the way?
No, I'm actually working too. So I try to plan to be here on time like today. But I
Right.
had a personal family issue that came up and it made me late to work. Hence it made me late to my class. I apologize. I try to be here on time. There's nothing going on, it's just